Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 mod review. Today, we're checking out a brand new weapon mod that is really cool for Minutemen playthroughs, and that is the Laser Musket 2.0 by Blaine Mobius. This is going to be a new version of the Laser Musket that you can use on your character, settlers, Minutemen, whoever, and this thing is really neat because it's a new manufactured look for the Laser Musket rather than something that's completely handmade and junky. This is something for a more established Minutemen playthrough. Now, the author does have a bunch of lore written for this thing, however, that lore applies to their bigger project, which is Fallout New Austin. So that stuff's not really going to carry over to Fallout 4. My headcanon for this is that since this is a more manufactured look for the Laser Musket, that this could be great for an established Minutemen playthrough where you've already taken over the castle and you've started to put down measures to actually manufacture your own weapons. This is something that I think could totally happen. This is like where the prototype of the handmade laser musket could lead to, as it's pretty easy to manufacture this crank design for actually making the energy, and now there's just some better parts to help kind of go around it. In terms of performance, the Laser Musket 2.0 is actually really decent, giving you a damage of 54 compared to the vanilla Laser Musket's 32, so it definitely is worth picking this thing up. And if you'd like to get your hands on one of these, you can do so in a handful of ways. First of all, it will start spawning in the leveled list after level 25, so you will start seeing this thing on Minutemen, but like I said, it'll be later on in the playthrough, so hopefully by then you've actually done some of the Minutemen questline, and it makes a little bit more sense to have some of these more advanced laser rifles spawn, so that's pretty cool. But additionally, you can also purchase them over at a weapon vendor, or you can craft it at the chemistry station. On top of that, there are also two unique versions of this weapon, and I mean truly unique, that can be found out in the world, and they are one of a kind. So if you don't want those locations spoiled, go ahead and skip to the next timestamp. But in case you do want to know what those are and where they're at, I'll go ahead and let you know now. So the first unique is very easy to find. You're just going to need to head over to the Diamond City Market, head on over to Power Noodles, and right on the counter, you will find the Jason Briggs laser musket and also the Red Beamer magazine. So go ahead and grab those and you'll have access to the Jacob Briggs, which is mighty interesting. You'll notice it has a damage of 2, and unlike other muskets, this has no cap on how many times you can charge it. You can charge this thing basically infinitely. And I mean, seriously, just watch the number go up. But keep in mind, you only have a damage of 2, so you're going to want to charge this thing for a while before it does any significant damage. So just multiply whatever charge count you're at by 2, and that's how much damage you're going to do. Pretty interesting. Now, the next unique is going to take you to some much more difficult terrain. You're actually going to need to head over to the Glowing Sea into the Crater of Adam. Once there, find all of the houses, and in the rightmost house, a little tiny hut, you will find Sparky Boom. Yeah, an interesting name. You'll also find a bunch of interesting looking fusion cells known as weird fusion cells. So go ahead and grab those because these are going to be a pretty limited commodity. So the thing with the Sparky Boom is it does use a very limited ammo type, but the reason for that is because this thing does massive amounts of damage. You'll notice that you can only charge it once, and it's a very slow charge, and then when you shoot, it's quite an explosion. So this thing has the damage potential of basically a fat man, and that's why it has some very rare ammo. Though you can craft the ammo, but even still, there is a limited amount of it in the game, and I'll show you why right now. So, like I said earlier, you can craft some stuff in this mod over at the chemistry station. Head over to the utility category, and as you scroll down, you'll eventually find the Laser Musket 2.0, which I was really hoping would be craftable with, say, the original Laser Musket, like taking the old one, adding some parts, and making it better, but instead you're just going to craft it for caps, and that's going to be 2,500 caps to be exact. So that's pretty interesting. I would like to see maybe a bit of a change to that, but that's just my own personal preference. The other thing that's craftable here, if we scroll down a little bit, we will find the weird fusion cells. Now, these are the same ones that the unique weapon uses, and you'll notice that they require not only fusion cells and nuclear material, but also alien blaster rounds to craft. So, using one alien blaster round, one fusion cell, and some nuclear material, you'll be able to craft 2 of these rounds. So that's pretty cool that you can convert the alien blaster rounds into basically double whatever you would find in the base game. But again, it is a limited amount, so that unique version, the Zappy Zappy Boom, is going to be pretty limited in its capacity. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's actually talk about the base stats of the Laser Musket 2.0. This thing's going to have a damage of 54, which is much better than that 30 damage on the vanilla Laser Musket. Uses fusion cells, of course, has a fire rate of 6, though that doesn't really apply since this is a laser musket that you are going to have to crank every time you want to shoot it. It has a range of 215, an accuracy of 72, a weight of 16.7 pounds, which seems pretty heavy, but I think it's a little bit balanced given that this thing can spit out some pretty big damage, and has a value of 90 caps. Now, when it comes to the attachments for the Laser Musket 2.0, there's actually not a ton going on. Pretty much what you'd expect from the vanilla Laser Musket, just improved. Starting with the capacitor section, we have a handful of capacitors going from 3 crank up to 7 crank, though it does include the crank capacitor and the Sparky Boom capacitor from the 2 unique variants, though you can't actually craft these. Whenever you attempt to, it says that you lack the requirements to create these. These are intended, I believe, to just be used on the unique versions, and they're probably not supposed to appear in the weapons workbench, but that might have been a small little mistake by the author, but that might get fixed in an update soon. As for barrels, we see the new long barrel, but that is the only barrel option right now. Hopefully we'll see some more of that added in the future, because I would like some barrel customization for this weapon. For the stocks, we have the new full stock, the advanced full stock, and the comfort full stock. Again, we have the little thing here where we can see the unique versions that are not actually craftable, so little mistake, but not a big one. The important thing here is you get a new full stock, advanced full stock, and a comfort full stock. As for scopes, we have access to a short scope, a reflex sight, a medium scope, a long scope, and a recon scope. Now, what's interesting about this weapon is if you find it in its stock formation or you just craft it, it's not going to have any sights whatsoever. It doesn't actually have an iron sight, so you do definitely want to come to a weapons workbench straight away and put one of these scopes on instead. And then finally, for the muzzle section, we have the option for no muzzle, a beam splitter, an amped beam splitter, a beam focuser, and a tuned beam focuser, which function just like they would in the vanilla game. And now it is of course time for our damage test. We'll be doing 4 tests today. The first with the basic version of the weapon with no upgrades and no perks. The second test will be with a fully upgraded version of the weapon with the best attachments. And then we'll be testing each of the unique weapons in this mod. So let's go ahead and get started with the first Deathclaw here. Now, in case you're not a fan of the laser musket, or you don't know how it works, or just haven't used it in the vanilla game, if you charge it once, it's going to do the base damage, which I believe was 54. And if you charge it multiple times, you're going to get even more damage. So if we charge it up to 6 times, you'll see that it does a lot more damage to the Deathclaw. So hypothetically, if we were to fully charge this thing twice, that Deathclaw is down, making this a pretty serviceable version of the laser musket, especially in the level of 25. Now then, let's see how it does when it is fully upgraded. The default configuration has 6 cranks, and the fully upgraded version has 7 cranks. I have a feeling we're not going to see a huge difference on a Deathclaw. Yeah, and I was correct. It does definitely do more damage, but it's not enough to actually kill the Deathclaw, so it's still going to be 2 shots either way. That being said, we do have some interesting, unique variants. So, starting off with the Jason Briggs version of the laser musket. If you remember the little intro, this thing has 2 damage, so charging it once does nothing. Almost nothing to this Deathclaw. But we have no limit on how far we can charge this thing, so let's just give me a minute here. Alright, I went ahead and charged this thing up to 300, which means I literally had to press R 300 times. Let's see if that was enough. Doing 2 damage per each charge, that should be enough to kill a Deathclaw, I think. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. That being said, if you charged it just once, it does no damage. So the more time you put into this weapon, the more damage it's going to do. I like to imagine somebody running across the Commonwealth, just charging this thing forever, and then getting one nice shot off, and then having to switch to another weapon to actually finish the fight. So that's pretty interesting. Now then, let's go ahead and switch over to our final weapon, which is the Sparky Boom. And this one, we can only load 1 charge in, but it does some pretty devastating damage. And somehow, not enough to kill the Deathclaw. It crippled it in every way and did almost enough to kill it, but it was actually just short. Huh. Interesting. Look at that. So yeah, I think that covers just about everything in the Laser Musket 2.0. I really, really like this weapon. It's super cool, a nice upgrade for the Minutemen since they didn't have a huge arsenal in the vanilla game. The Laser Musket was all they had, and it didn't really last in the late game, but this new version, especially with the unique variants, provides some pretty cool alternative ways to use energy weapons, and I think they actually are serviceable in the mid to late game, so that's pretty neat. With that, if you want to try out this mod, it will be linked down in the description below. I'll also be leaving a link to the newest update on Fallout New Austin, which is what this project is a part of. It's some pretty cool stuff, so if you're into those big Fallout projects, this is one that might be worth looking at. There's some cool stuff going on over there, including some new weapons and armors, and possibly some standalone mods we might get to see in the future, including this one. So with that, go ahead and check that out as well if you want to support the author. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to drop a rating or leave a comment letting me know if you did. Consider subscribing if you haven't already for more videos just like this. Big shout out to all of my patrons for supporting every single video. And of course, a very special thank you to Captain Chaos, Helljumper, Indecisive Wolf, Jackie Noid, Timmy76, Cushy, Moonlit Gamer, Feed, Youth RC, and our newest member, John Moreland, for signing up for that Tier 3 Patreon membership. If you'd like to support the channel and all the mods I work on over on Patreon, you can do so using the link down in the description below, but it's completely optional. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace!